So hi everybody, thank you very much for joining our webinar on the Bit with Mary Wanless BHSI BSc. Um, Before we start, we put up a little poll which asked what percentage are you and your horse responsible for the end result. Just before Mary begins, I'll just share that with you. So currently 67% say 75% down to me, 25% down to the horse. And 33% of you are saying 90% down to me and 10% down to the horse. No one chose any of the other selections, which is great. And with that, I'll hand you over to Mary.
Hi there, everybody. So that sounds like there's a bunch of people listening to this who are taking a lot of responsibility for what happens between them and the horse, which is a great start. So hello to you. I'm in Boston. It's 6 o'clock in the evening here in Boston. It's the end of a day of the end of a clinic. And of course, as ever, On the Bit has been a fair theme in this clinic, as it always is. And my sense is this is the big bugaboo of riders, isn't it, really? And it certainly was for me back through time. And my hope is that this is an opportunity to dispel some of the myths about On the Bit, to tell some of the stories that I think give some really good illustrations of On the Bit kind of histories with various people and pitfalls and overcoming pitfalls and learning stages. And my hope is to get you, since this is a talk rather than a practical demo, to get you at least to think about it differently, and hopefully to maybe have a few physical strategies, but to think about it differently in a way that might change your attitude to your horse and how you think about On the Bit and your role in getting him on the bit and his role in coming on the bit. So for me, as I think many riders, my days of innocence of my teenage riding years kind of come to an abrupt halt with the idea that today we were going to get the horses on the bit. And I think in the process of learning to take my BHS exams, all the training and working students and various things I did in those days, I got besotted by getting the horse on the bit, because it just seemed like that was the be-all and end-all of riding. And if I could do that, I was a good rider. And if I couldn't do that, I was not a good rider. And of course, what I wanted more than anything else was to be a good rider. And what starts to happen then is it becomes so supremely important that the horse is on the bit, because you're going to be so judged by whether his nose is in the air or whether it isn't. And that makes many riders, and certainly at that stage myself included, desperate about getting his nose to come down. And I think, like many people, I learned to kick and fiddle and pull and jiggle around with my hands and do things that would make the horse's head come down, largely so I wouldn't get screamed at. And once those kind of things have been learnt, they become pretty hard to unlearn. So I now believe it is actually possible to learn to bring the horse into what I might call the seeking reflexes or the spiral of ease, in a way that doesn't become a huge big deal and a drama and a desperation, but that starts to evolve as somebody's skills evolve. But most of us are in the business of unlearning those early desperate measures by which we felt we sank or swam as riders. And for some people, there's safety involved in that some riders feel safer when the horse's head is down than they do when the head is up. And for some riders, it's just about looking good. There's one young woman I know who was a working student at my place in England quite a few years ago. And this was after she'd done a college degree in equine something or other. This college degree did involve riding. And our joke used to be that she had a BSc in fiddling horses' heads down. And it'd taken her 3 years to get that BSc, and it took her at least 3 years to unlearn all the fiddling and twiddling that she learned during the process of getting that degree. And I think that's probably actually, in the overall scheme of things, a relatively short time to undo that learning and undo that desperation. So She is someone like me who struggled a whole load on that. And what happens for people in their learning process is they start to begin to realize what to do that can work, and they start to get it to work. And there's that desperate moment when the horse's head comes up, and in that desperate moment they revert to all those old tactics, and all they can think of is pulling and fiddling it down. And I try to get people to be able to say, okay, so it's 11:15 on Thursday morning and my horse's nose is up in the air. So what? It doesn't mean I'm a bad rider. It doesn't mean I'm terrible. It doesn't mean I have to get desperate. It doesn't mean I have to get it down before Mary shouts at me. It just means that something just changed between him and me, from which what we really want to do is extract the learning. Because I think one of the big deals in that desperation about On the Bit is that when it goes wrong, people want to get it right, as they perceive it, so fast that they never go, what actually happened? What happened in that moment? How did the horse change? How did I change? How did he con me? How did he rearrange me in that process of going wrong?